India's Q3 GDP Buxall estimates at 8.4% growth. New Delhi, the Indian economy continued to outperform, with GDP growth in the quarter ending December coming in at 8.4%, beating analyst estimates by around 180 basis points or 1.8 percentage points, and the government now expects the economy to grow by 7.6% in 2023 to 24, up from the 7.3% projected in January. The numbers, which will force economists and analysts to question whether they seriously underestimated the momentum in India's economy, were released by the National Statistical Office, NSO, on Thursday, although a closer reading does point to some concerns over the tepid growth in consumption spending, one of the pillars of GDP. GDP growth in the quarter ending December 2023 is 8.4%, almost 2 percentage points more than the 6.6% number predicted by a Bloomberg poll of economists. And GDP growth in the quarters ending June and September 2023 now stands at 8.2% and 8.1% respectively, instead of the 7.8% and 7.6% when the September quarter numbers were released on 30th November 2023. In terms of a sectoral growth performance, manufacturing and construction are among the best performers with annual growth rate of 8.5% and 10.7% respectively. The actual performance of the economy has continued to defy expectations and do better than what many had projected, underscoring the fact that a structural transformation of the economy is indeed underway, both in terms of physical infrastructure and digital infrastructure as well as inclusion agenda boosting the purchasing power of Indian households, Chief Economic Advisor V. Anantha Nageshwaran said, citing estimates of various agencies, such as ADB, 6.7% for FY24, IMF, 6.7%, and Fitch, 6.9%. So that is the case for many agencies to reappraise their estimate of potential GDP growth in India to closer to 7% if not above. And let's also remember that the Central Bank, Reserve Bank of India, is projecting 7% GDP growth for FY25 as well, he added. The latest GDP numbers only strengthen India's relative advantage vis-à-vis other major economies in the world in terms of growth. Robust 8.4% GDP growth in Q3 2023-24 shows the strength of Indian economy and its potential. Our efforts will continue to bring fast economic growth which shall help 140 crore, 1.4 billion, Indians lead a better life and create a Viksit Bharat. PM Narendra Modi said in a post on X. In retrospect, the numbers also buttress the views of Monetary Policy Committee, MPC, member Professor Jayant A. Verma, who argued in the February MPC meeting against the growth pessimism of the majority of the MPC. Perhaps, the majority of the MPC worry that the output gap has already closed, and that the projected growth rate of 7% for 2024-25 exceeds the growth potential of the Indian economy. I do not think that such growth pessimism is warranted. If the potential growth rate of the economy is close to 8%, then the economy is not at risk of overheating in 2024-25, the MPC minutes released on 22 February quoted Verma as saying in the meeting held between February 6 to 8. Today's print suggests growth is moving faster than expected by RBI, which means the central bank will see little urgency to cut rates while the MPC awaits for comfort on headline inflation. In our view, 4 members of the MPC remain hawkish as per the February meeting, and solid growth will buy them more time to wait and watch data on inflation, especially on food, Rahul Bajoria, MD and head of M Asia, ex-China, Economics, Barclays, said in a note. We expect the steady domestic growth momentum to continue, supported by continued increases in government capex, much anticipated rising private investment and monetary easing, he added. These favorable observations notwithstanding, A slightly detailed look at latest and revised GDP numbers released on Thursday raises some interesting questions. Along with quarterly GDP numbers and second advance estimates of GDP for 2023 to 24, NSO has also replaced first revised estimates of 2021 to 22 GDP with second revised estimates and the provisional estimates of 2022 to 23 GDP with first revised estimates in its latest release on GDP numbers. As a result of these revisions, GDP growth in 2022 to 23 now stands at 7% instead of 7.2% according to the GDP data released in January 2024. Clearly, these revisions have played a role in the tweak in the headline GDP growth number and its components for 2023 to 24. Given the fact that GDP numbers for 2021 to 22 and 2022 to 23 have also changed between the first advance estimates and second advance estimates for 2023 to 24 GDP, a better question to ask is how has the Indian economy grown between 2021 to 22 and 2023 to 24 in the January and February sets of numbers released this year. GDP growth over this two-year period has remained unchanged at 15.1% in both sets of numbers. However, a look at some key disaggregates offers some interesting insights. Growth in gross value added, GVA, between 2021 to 22 and 2023 to 24 between the January 2024 and February 2024 numbers has come down from 14.4% to 14.1%. The reason why GDP growth has remained unchanged is an increase in growth of the net taxes head. GDP is the sum of GVA and net taxes, from 23.8% to 27.7% in the January and February numbers. This could be a result of higher growth in taxes or lower spending on subsidies. Two-year growth in private final consumption expenditure, PFCE, and gross fixed capital formation, GFCF, also shows a fall in the January and February numbers. PFC growth fell from 12.3% to 10% in the January and February data, while GFCF growth fell from 22.9% to 17.5% in the January and February data. Government final consumption expenditure, GFCE, growth, on the other hand, shows a sharp increase in growth between 2021 to 22 and 2023 to 24 from 4.2% to 12.3% in the January and February numbers.